On the achievement of wisdom. The interior perception of attaining wisdom is achieved in one of two ways. The first through wisdom, and the second by its opposite, unwisdom, both leading to the same accelerative sensation, the one toward greater reckoning, and the other toward perdition. But the two senses are not identical, one the counterfeit of the other. And in addition, both types need not produce any perceptive experience at all. Days, weeks, and months may pass as a man, without any direct knowledge, either arises into wisdom or slouches into unwisdom or folly. But those types aren't being considered here, but only the directly perceptible sort, of which a man might murmur to himself, in cherished self-adoration, "You curmudgeonly old soul, you are finally attaining a half an inch closer to the place of the great wise ones. Well done." And yet now, of this perceptive sort, a short example will suffice to clarify it better than a purposeless density of abstract description. A short example will suffice to clarify it better than a purposeless density of abstract description. A man is traveling cross-country on a bus. He is desirous to get to his destination in good speed, for it has already been several days, and the monotonous passage of flat and uneventful countryside has dulled his mind to the point of total abandon. He begins to develop a delusional paranoia that the bus driver is maneuvering aimlessly on purpose. For what reason, he is not quite sure. At first in ironic, detached parody, but eventually finding that such a wretched pastime does not entertain him, but rather disturbs his sense of well-being even further. The dimensions of what he now begins considering in even greater earnest begins to fill his soul with a terrible fear, reasoning with himself that even if the odds due such a horrible outcome are 1 in 10 million, the scale of horror it would wreak on his life, by stranding him so far from friends and family, health and home, in an alien, desert land, render even 1 in 10 million an intolerable percentage to endure at such a moment as that one, in such discomforting heat and crammed and dingy locomotion. However, after considering the absurdity of such a contingency, for the driver, though slovenly and fat, does not look otherwise foreboding or malicious in any way, he reassures himself by withdrawing a map from his suitcase and verifying, highway by highway and exit by exit, that the bus is indeed traveling in a course toward the city, whose name is stamped atop his ticket. After dispelling his momentary psychosis, the man settles back into his seat and falls asleep, only to awaken as if by time travel to his destination at long last. He carries his suitcase to the curb, breathes deeply of the fine weather, despite a trace of urban reek that clings to the architectural spectacles and busy city thoroughfares he had so pined for while still on the prairie. He even makes it to his long-awaited lunch with an old friend in the area, who had encouraged such an odyssey, having had first emboldened him with strong, undiluted statements of pure brotherly sentiment over the previous several months, as the man's life wavered and sagged down every blind duck alley and caroused heedlessly within every passing house of shame, so that in the new city, greeted with the sight of such a welcome companion, and moreover relieved by his recent bout of preposterous and temporary insanity, he jovially shares in every detail the just described ordeal on the bus. He jovially shares. in every detail the just described ordeal on the bus. His friend laughs, for he tells the story of his paranoia well. However, before concluding his tale, and no doubt impeded in some measure by the strength and number of heartily manufactured drinks they both consume, the man cannot resist the temptation to, if only by subtly inserted vocal inflection, to congratulate himself on the finding of the map, along with his devisement of such a stratagem as verifying, exit by exit and highway by highway, the driver's course. For without such a burst of insight he may have indeed gone insane and strangled the poor driver by the throat. However, he is halted by his friend, whose corners of eyes pivot from upward elfish laughter into squinting sideways concern, before finally collapsing downward, and propelling both eyes to roll like pinballs into a trap after hearing the answer to his question. But, my friend, what if you had not packed a map? To which the other replies, not yet sensing the impact nor import of his good friend's query, for they had been just moments ago laughing, and he sought to continue in a jovial mood throughout the whole night, in spite of his fizzling intellect and brink-teetering good sense. I suppose I would have had to draw my own. Although intended in jest, this remark does not please the man's friend, who seizes violently and without a trace of mercy upon the answer given, wielding the symbolism within it, which his friend had so blindly bypassed, to bludgeon his fragile egotism beyond repair, by simply getting up and leaving in silence, casually as if only to settle the check, and leaving his friend for several tormenting days to wander the streets of the strange and forbidding new city, of which he had only before then marked out as paradise on a map.